Matsuricon in Columbus, Ohio is an anime convention I've attended so many times that I've lost count. It was one of my first anime conventions all the way back in 2013 and still continues to be one of my favorites. But how did it stack up this year? Were they able to maintain that Matsuricon quality of the past, or have they finally started to fall off? Let's jump into it. Matsuricon is a medium-sized convention. While they've certainly grown a lot over the years, I still think they fit perfectly into the medium category. Not small, but also not overwhelmingly big. There are a lot of people who attend, but also it never feels overly crowded. For me, it's the perfect size for an anime convention. The location gets a 10 out of 10. As always, I still love the Hyatt and Convention Center in downtown Columbus for events like this. I think it's aesthetically pleasing and very open, while also somehow having little nooks and crannies you can get lost in and end up finding parts of the con you never even knew existed. I do also like that there's still much more room to be expanded into if the people who run the con decide they want to expand in the future. It's kind of a perfect location for something like this. If you're planning to stay the whole weekend and don't mind walking a bit, I recommend parking in the Chestnut Street garage. There are multiple parking garages around the area, but this one only charges $15 a night, or at least that's what they charged this year. Be warned, however, that it's a little bit of a walk through tunnels, so depending which hotel you choose, it may or may not be worth it for you. You'll have to decide that for yourself. I've stayed in the Hyatt in past years and in the Hilton this year, and for both of these hotels, I think it was worth the money saved. Food is something you really don't need to worry about at Matsuricon. The Hyatt has a full-on food court, and right outside the convention center, there's not only a line of restaurants, but if you walk a little bit down the street, you'll find this whole little building full of international restaurants, including Japanese. Kind of perfect for an anime con. Organization gets a 9 out of 10. For almost everything, organization was perfect. Everything we attended started on time, everything ran super smoothly, and we were able to get our badges in about 10 seconds. And I never really saw a line for it, though I also didn't stick around and watch, so who knows. Oh, also they use the Eventini app? No idea if I pronounced that right, I probably didn't, to host their schedule this year, which honestly helped a lot. It made it much easier to look up different events that were happening throughout the weekend and to be quickly notified about changes to the schedule. And like always, whoever runs Matsuricon's social media absolutely killed it, as on Instagram at least, they always had quick and helpful updates anytime there was a change. The reason I knocked off 1 point here is because there were a few times I needed to ask staff members who are in charge of certain sections for information about different things, yet the person who was put in charge of those areas didn't know the answer and also didn't know who to contact because they said, and I quote, "Communication is really bad among the staff this year. We have no idea what's going on." For most people, this isn't going to cause any issue, but I did find it a bit odd that multiple staff members told me this. There was also another small issue, but I'll cover that when we get to main events later in the video. The dealer's room gets an 8 out of 10. To be honest, I really liked the dealer's room. I found a few things there I liked and personally thought they had most of the things you would expect to see at a con, but I do need to take into account that some of the people in my group, as well as some of the people I talked to throughout the weekend, thought it was a bit lacking in some areas. Admittedly, there did seem to be a lot of unused space that could be used in the future to expand the vendors or artist alley. Also, I am including the night market they had each night in this rating. Last year, I really liked the night market, but this year it left me feeling really underwhelmed. It was very small and crowded, and all the booths felt like they should have just straight up been in the artist alley instead of separated out into a separate night market. Just my personal opinion, but I would rather this be reworked into maybe just a one-night event that features secondhand goods being sold by attendees for attendees. I've seen this type of event at cons like Youmacon and DokidoCon, and personally find it way more interesting than a glorified artist alley extension. The game room gets a 9.5 out of 10. Like always, I love the arcade gaming section that Matsuri always has. It was basically identical to last year's, but that's not a bad thing. As for the console section, I thought it was significantly improved this year. While I still didn't spend much time in there, I did like what I saw much more than last year. They had a lot of different games set up. I would like to see Guitar Hero, but that's a personal nitpick. Of course, there was also a large tabletop area, but we missed it completely. So you'll have to let me know how it was in the comments below. Sorry about that. Outside the main gaming area, they once again had a VR room, though this year it was moved to a different and bigger room. This was great as it seemed pretty popular. Most Most everyone in my group tried it and had a great time. I also want to mention this here because I'm not sure where else to mention it. They had an escape room. Not sure if they had this last year and we just missed it, but this year we took advantage of it on Saturday and honestly had a great time. It only lasts around 30 minutes, and they admit as well that it isn't the hardest escape room ever made, but it's still a ton of fun with friends. And I really like that they tried to make it somewhat anime themed with the killers being anime characters. I would love to see them lean even more into this in the future if possible. Finally, because again I don't know where else to mention it, they brought back foam fighting again this year, which my whole group took part in. It was a great time, though all of us wish they had maybe like a secondary area where you could just fight 1-on-1 or 2-on-2 with your own friends, as some people in the group battles took it a little too seriously when we just wanted to have fun fighting our friends. Still an awesome time nonetheless. Main Events gets a 10 out of 10. Please keep in mind that it's not possible for me to attend every event that happened over the weekend, but as for what I was able to attend, I think it was perfect. Of course, the content's gonna come down to personal preference, but as for how everything was set up and organized, I think it was very well done. It was good to see them hosting enough events that they were able to use more than one main events room simultaneously, giving people even more options. Also, the hosts for everything seemed very professional. They didn't try to make it all about themselves or act super cringe the whole time. My personal standout event for the weekend was the J-pop, K-pop dance competition. The energy in there was amazing, and the dancers were better than 95% of the dancers I've seen at any con I've ever attended. The masquerade itself ran fine, but I didn't like how they handled the line for it. They weren't letting anyone line up early. I asked the staff member stationed there why this was, and they told me it was for safety reasons. I find this crazy because you can control a line, but instead it just turned into a mass of people gathering, waiting around until they announced that you could line up, which resulted in that mass of people rushing to try to get as far up in line as possible, which I personally found to be much more dangerous than just controlling a standard line. But I don't know, that's just me. Also, that same staff member told me that they would start lineup at 4:30, but then they started it at 4:20, which I just found annoying, to be honest. I didn't mention it earlier, but this line situation is the other reason why I dropped the score for organization just a bit. Staff gets a 9.5 out of 10. As mentioned a few times, there were some odd communication issues happening, but putting all that aside, the staff was very friendly, they acted very professionally, and I thought 99% of them performed their role at this year's Matsuricon to perfection. I think the large majority of attendees would have no issue with Matsuricon staff this year. Big shout out to you guys. Without good staff, a con like this could never run so smoothly. So, thank you for everything you do. The electronic dance party gets an 8 out of 10. The dance parties this year were a super mixed bag for me. First, I want to give a shout out to DJ Descent for all the work they put into setting up the dance for Matsuri and honestly playing my personal favorite set of the weekend. I didn't end up getting to see all the DJs play, but from what I did see, I thought Descent's set was best able to capture what I personally like in a convention dance. As for Friday, I found it all in all pretty lacking. There was almost no one there. Obviously, this isn't the fault of the DJs. Friday's always smaller, but I didn't think the first DJ who played should have been first, to be honest. The music they were playing was just too hard to vibe and dance to. It was very hard and very heavy, but just hard to dance to because of it. And you could tell when looking around at the crowd, as everyone was pretty much just standing there. The crowds both nights just felt like they really needed to be told to move forward and hyped up a bit by a DJ or a designated MC. But nothing like that ever happened, at least not that I saw. Of course, I would like to see more anime or nerd remixes being played. Every time I've seen a DJ do this at a con, the crowd goes absolutely wild, and at least from what I saw, this seemed to be absent. The crowd was much more into it on Saturday, but the security kept getting in the way. For example, anytime a conga line started, which is very, very common at every convention dance I've ever been to, they would immediately chase them down and break it up. The reason given was for safety and to stop people from getting trampled. And I do find this to be an understandable reasoning, but combining this type of thing with the lack of crowd control just made things feel a little boring compared to every other con dance I've been to this year. Technically speaking, everything was fantastic. The lighting was great, the sound quality was great, production in general was top notch, so overall it was a bit conflicting expecting for me. There were things I liked and things I thought were a bit questionable. At the end of the day, I give Matsuricon 2024 a 9 out of 10. I've also given Matsuricon the convention review seal of approval in the past, and I still stand by that this year. I thought some things were better this year, while others were a bit lacking compared to past years. But overall, it still evened out to feel about the same to me as last year did. I really think if you're looking for a safe, medium-sized anime convention, you really can't go wrong with Matsuricon. Absolutely add it to your calendar for 2025 and stay nerdy.